for another episode of Boxing News today. Let's start off with our friends across the pond, Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr., who are going to go toe to toe quite soon. And at their weigh in, a bit of controversy has erupted. As reported by BoxingScene.com, Liam Smith could face action from the British Boxing Board of Control after he goaded Chris Eubank Jr. at their press conference by inferring that Eubank was gay. Sky Sports presenter Anna Woodhouse apologized for the homophobic remarks after an exchange between the pair about sending each other direct messages turned ugly, with Smith saying Eubank was never seen with women and asking, "Do you want to tell us something?" The BBBOC looks set to take action that could lead to a charge of misconduct against Smith, although Eubank could be sanctioned too for his part. A statement was issued saying the British Boxing Board of Control are aware of the comments made by Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. at the press conference, and the stewards of the board will be considering the conduct of both boxers directly. It is normally the way in boxing that people go low when there are tickets of pay-per-views to shift, but the moment was an embarrassment to Sky Sports and promoter Ben Shalom. Shalom said tensions were high and the fighters have apologized. Liam has apologized. Well, that escalated quickly, said Eubank on Twitter. The two have been needling each other since the fight, which takes place in Manchester, was announced. Smith has insisted that Eubank has not gotten under his skin, but when Eubank accused him of sending direct messages to Eubank's social media account saying he was more used to getting DMs from women, Smith bit, saying that nobody ever saw Eubank with women. "Because you're 33, Smith said, do you want to tell us something? Because nobody in this room has ever seen you with a woman." "Listen, my private life is my private life," Eubank replied. "That's irrelevant to me, boxing. But I'm happy, I'm comfortable." Sorry, that's irrelevant to the boxing. But I'm happy, I'm comfortable. After Smith again asked, "Do you have something you want to tell us?" Eubank replied, "It's a very personal question to ask me directly. You can slide in my DMs or you can do it right now. I used to think Tony Bellew was the biggest arsehole to come out of Liverpool, but this stage, Liam has definitely taken the number one slot. It's impressive." Despite broadcaster Andy Scott's attempt to steer the conference another way, the pair returned to the subject as Eubank accused Smith of cheating on his wife. If you want to get dark and personal with it, talking about being gay and do I like girls, I've been told by multiple sources that you cheat on your wife on occasion, Eubank said. I'd rather be gay than a cheat. Smith later admitted he had crossed a line, while Eubank said he had embarrassed himself. Smith told the Press Association, "It's crossed a line, and for people looking at it, it's wrong. We shouldn't act like that. It's fight week. We're both starving and making weight. And if anyone took it personally, I apologize. I was always going to get a little bit heated like that. At the end of the day, it's just words, just like take it with a pinch of salt." Eubank said, "This is boxing. It's entertainment business. This is a fight game, and this is real. People react to fighting a man in different ways. He embarrassed himself up there, but that's okay. We're going to fight it out and settle our differences in a couple of days' time." So there you go. News out of Manchester, where Eubank Jr. and Smith are going to go toe-to-toe. Speaking of that particular fight, on the undercard, we're going to see former heavyweight champ Joseph Parker fight. His quotes were interesting too. He said, "I want to fight Dillian White again. It was a great, tough first fight. He got the win. Awesome for him. And I'd like to avenge that loss." And this writer says, let's have a quick look here. So I want to make sure I got the name right here. James Slater said, "We fans would welcome a White Parker too, simply because the 2018 fight was so exciting. And some feel Parker was a little hard done by in that fight. This in terms of scoring, and with Parker being judged to have been knocked down one time when he could have in fact been hit by White's head. White's second knockdown of the fight being legit. But Parker has other fights in mind in case of White in case a White cannot my goodness, in case a White return cannot be made." Get past Massey. There's Michael Hunter calling me out. If no one wants to fight Joyce, I'll fight him again. But I have to take care of business first. And of course, the business he's talking about is Jack Massey. Jack Massey, who's 20-1, by the way. And Parker had this to say about Massey: if I lose to Massey, I'll be out of the picture. It's going to be a good fight. Parker's 30-3, by the way. He's coming off that hard stoppage loss to Joe Joyce. And he says, although the world title fight would be obviously the dream fight, he's open to fighting Joyce again. So the 31-year-old says he'd really like to fight Dillian Whyte. As I said, Whyte took that only fight, on a victory by points. So there you go, a little bit of news out of Manchester regarding the taunts by Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith, as well as a few comments from Joseph Parker, who's a tough guy, but has lost a couple of key fights, and it'd be interesting to see if he can rebound against his opponent. Anyway, speaking of opponents, we see that Eddie Hearn has some comments to make about some upcoming fights. As reported by BoxingNews24.com, their reporter Jack Tiernam said Eddie Hearn states that if Naoya Monster Inoue dethrones WBC WBO Super Bantamweight champion Stephen Fulton, he'll agree to make a fight between the Japanese star and IBF WBA champ Murodjon Akhmadiev for the undisputed 122-pound championship later this year. And that shows a lot of class by Hearn, not to be an obstacle to making an important fight for this super bantamweight division and boxing, especially given that his fighter, Akhmadiev, who's 11-0, 8 knockouts, will likely be a colossal underdog against the 29-year-old former 3-division world champion Monster Inoue, who's 24-0. Inoue wants to be undisputed at 122, said Eddie Hearn, when asked if he'll allow Inoue to face IBF and WBA Super Bantamweight champ Akhmadiev for the undisputed championship at 122 if the Japanese star defeats Stephen Fulton. Long story. We don't need to go all the way down through it, but those are the key points made by Eddie Hearn with respect to a potential fight if Inoue wins. And he had this to say about Dmitry Bivol, as reported by Sean Jones, also in Boxing News 24. Matchroom Box Eddie Hearn says he'd be interested in looking at making a fight between Jaime Munguia and Dmitry Bivol this year. Golden Boy Promotions president Eric Gomez told ESPN's Salvador Rodriguez this week that he wants to match his popular unbeaten middleweight contender, Munguia, who's 41-0, by the way, 33 knockouts, against WBA light heavyweight champ Dmitry Bivol, also undefeated, 21-0, 11 knockouts. Hearn admits that it's strange the way that Munguia's promoters are matching him because he thinks he'd be better off fighting Canelo Alvarez or Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, as those would be competitive fights. But against Bivol, Hearn says Munguia won't win a round because he's overmatched. Golden Boy likely hasn't had luck getting Canelo or Golovkin to agree to fight Munguia willingly. Golovkin now is 40, and there's a good chance he would lose to Munguia. Munguia said he wants to fight Golovkin, Jermell Charlo, Bivol, and Canelo in 2023. All of those would be excellent fights, without a doubt. We'll have to see if Golden Boy can make any of those happen. Gomez says that Munguia could go up to 175 or fight at catchweight against Bivol. Munguia is a huge draw for middleweight, and some would say that that's a natural 168-pounder. But with Munguia's frame, he could easily fight at 175 and look like a genuine light heavyweight. Yeah, I'd be happy to look at that fight, said Eddie Hearn. With respect to Munguia and Dmitry Bivol. Munguia, it's just strange what they're doing with him. I like him. I think he's exciting. For me, Munguia against Canelo, Munguia against Golovkin, but Munguia against Bivol, he wouldn't have a shot at winning a round against Dmitry Bivol, said Eddie Hearn. If you've not shown any previous intentions of being in any dangerous fights, why would you choose Dmitry Bivol? Listen, why not? Said Hearn. So anyway, Mungu would be an excellent choice for Bivol to fight in April as a warm-up to get him ready to battle Carnello in September. It's fair to say that a lot of U.S. boxing fans would be excited at seeing Bivol versus Munguia in the first quarter of this year. But it's questionable how much effort Hearn will make in setting up a fight between Bivol and Munguia this year. Hearn wants to set up a fight between Bivol and his matchroom fighter, Joshua Buatsi, in April, followed by Canelo in September. Right then, moving along. Speaking of Dmitry Bivol, he says his biggest ambition in boxing is to collect more titles, but he realizes some opportunities are easier to be had than others. The WBA light heavyweight champ from Russia has made it clear his top priority is to become an undisputed 175-pound champion. More recently, he has expressed interest in competing 168, specifically for a rematch with that division's undisputed champion, Canelo Alvarez. Bivol defeated Alvarez by unanimous decision last May in Las Vegas in a defense of his WBA 175-pound title. The two are most likely headed for a rematch in the second half of 2023. Eddie Hearn, the promoter of both fighters, by the way, recently suggested that a rematch at 168 for Alvarez's undisputed distinction is in play. Bivol said, "First of all, I want to get more belts. I want more belts. It doesn't matter who, I just want belts. Light heavyweight or super middleweight, whichever is easier to make the fight, I prefer that fight. Either option, however, will present their own specific set of challenges for Bivol. Alvarez's preference, according to Hearn, is for their rematch to be staged at 175, meaning if Alvarez, the cash cow of boxing, gets what he wants, Bivol would have to make do with another defense of his WBA belt. A fight to gain any of the remaining three titles at 175 figures to be an even trickier endeavor for Bivol because of corporate politics. Bivol's promoter Eddie Hearn of Matchroom rarely does any business with Top Rank, the company that backs WBO, WBC, and IBF Russian light heavyweight champ Artur Beterbiev. Indeed, Hearn and Top Rank head Beterbiev have feuded through the years in the media. Last summer, upon Beterbiev's knockout of Joe Smith Jr. to collect his third 175-pound belt, Arum told media he would not countenance a scenario in which he would let Beterbiev fight on a Matchroom promoted card, because in that scenario, the event would then have to be streamed by Hearn's partner, DAZN, the over-the-top subscription streaming service that Arum has long ridiculed for middling viewership. Arum's Top Rank has a partnership with ESPN, and loaning Beterbiev out to a competitor would not be in their corporate interests. Just so you know, Beterbiev is set to defend his belts against London's Anthony Yarde later this month, and even if Yarde, a big underdog, ends up winning, the business politics for Bivol would not likely change. Yarde's backed by Frank Warren's Queensberry, another adversary of Hearn, and who, moreover, has close promotional ties with Top Rank. So in the meantime, Bivol, who is boxing scene's 2022 Fighter of the Year, is enjoying the considerable clout he earned with his upset victory over Alvarez. Bivol followed that achievement up with a dominant points win over contender Gilberto Ramirez in October. Bit of exciting news there, and a bit of insight into the industry and how the industry works. It's personality driven, without a doubt. Let's zip down to Kissimmee, Florida, just outside of Orlando, where we're going to see one of our favorites here on Talkin fight, a young lady by the name of Jasmine Artiga. She's in a main event clash against Ashley Sciscente. Okay, these guys, couple of good matchups on the undercard. Christina Cruz going toe-to-toe against Amy Salinas. Kyria Tapia versus Clarice Morales. Aaron Janus Ingram versus Bryant Costello. Robert Burwell versus Patrick Pierre. Alex Chisholm versus Elliot Hicks. Danny Suarez and Jonathan Lacona going toe-to-toe. Corey Marksman, Adrian Orban. Joshua LeBron versus Gino Tonte. Jackson Blanco going against Luca Burgess. Glenn DeZern versus Luis Dominguez Hernandez Canberra. So it's interesting to see you've got 3 female bouts headlining a card down in Florida. It's called Warzone. It's taking place tonight. That's January 20th at the Kissimmee Civic Center. I believe it's sold out. And the promoter is Undisputed Promotions, and it'll be shown on Fight Plus Network. Let's move along to the final story of the day, courtesy of Dan Ambrose over at boxingnews24.com. Had a few comments to make with respect to a recent fight between Gervonta Tank Davis and Hector Luis Garcia. And he says they reportedly brought in a respectable 200,000, 215,000 pay-per-view buys for their January 7th tilt that was shown on Showtime. Remember, that one took place at the Capital One Arena in Washington. But according to other people, including Dan Raphael, he reports the figures are consistent with 3 of Tank's previous fights on Showtime, and the numbers are higher than the 61,000 pay-per-view buys reported by Rick Glazer, who's often appeared on Talk and Fight, in his Facebook page earlier this week with respect to that particular fight. So Glazer's saying the numbers are very low compared to what is being reported by the professionals in the media. Quick read through here. Unfortunately, the numbers that Tank Hector brought in are considered good for this era of pay-per-view, given how piracy has taken a massive bite out of this method of bringing in revenue. In the past, a successful pay-per-view event would pull in over 1 million buys, but not anymore. Tank Davis, as you remember, 9th round knockout of Hector Luis Garcia, generated more than 200,000 buys, it says, on his Substack site. That's Dan Raphael speaking here on his Substack site. The final tally likely will not exceed 215,000 buys when Tank Davis fights Ryan Garcia in April on Showtime. That event could bring in over 1 million buys, however. But piracy will be a huge problem for that event as well. And given the interest in that fight, it'll still do the numbers we like to see during the heyday when Floyd Mayweather took on Manny Pacquiao. Let's have a quick read here. Hector Luis Garcia said, I wanted to continue. I kept telling myself, should I or shouldn't I? But I wanted to. I was halfway done with the fight, so that's why I wanted to continue. My corner made the decision to stop it, but even after they stopped it, my vision was very blurry. I couldn't see. It's normal for me. I have too many years. I know how to deal with criticism. It doesn't affect me. When asked whether he was bothered by many boxing fans that said he quit against Tank. Tank is a good fighter, he said. He didn't knock me out. He has a record because his opponents fear him. They built his career by their fear and talking about his power. Although I took his power punches, I wanted to continue. He didn't push me back or buckle me. I felt like I'd still take all his punches as the rounds kept me going. I was getting more confident. If the fight had continued, I felt like I could have finished him, said Garcia. So we look forward to a rematch, in fact, if that happens. And that, my friends, concludes another episode of Talk and Fight, Boxing News Today. Remember to join me at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Knuckle Up with Mike Warren, Cedric Ben, and then 7 p.m. with Tim Witherspoon and friends for the Friday night panel. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you later on. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and please hit that notification bell.